CTV News with Carlyle Fiset.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with major legal action by one of Ontario's largest hospitals. London Health Sciences Centre is suing former employees and contractors in a civil fraud case, saying they cost the organization tens of millions of dollars. Rita Ismail reports.
It's being called one of the most serious breaches of trust in the hospital's history. London Health Sciences Centre is taking legal action over what it says was a decade-long scheme to defraud the public institution. In a civil lawsuit filed in Ontario Superior Court, LHSC is seeking more than $50 million in damages from several former employees, including executive Deepesh Patel, Derek Lal, and Neil Modi, along with contractor Paresh Sunny and construction firms BH Contractors and GBI Construction. The claim accuses the group of manipulating procurement processes, inflating invoices, and awarding contracts to companies with secret ties, actions that LHSC says amount to civil fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. Patel, the former vice president of facilities, is alleged to have steered millions in contracts to companies linked to Sunny, his close associate, without disclosing conflict of interest. One company alone, BH Contractors, reportedly received nearly $30 million, including $21 million for a window replacement project. LHSC says that project cost $10 million more than independent estimates. Investigators also point to suspicious real estate activity. Patel is set to control at least 22 properties, most purchased after key contracts were awarded. Sunny is linked to 43 properties valued at nearly $14 million. LHSC has also filed a second $10 million lawsuit, this time against 3 former executives and a consulting firm it accuses of turning a blind eye to the misconduct. Former CEO Jackie Schleifler-Taylor, CFO Abhi Mukherjee, and executive Bradley Campbell are accused of ignoring a 2022 report that flagged potential fraud and failing to notify auditors or the board of directors. In a letter to the community, LHSC Supervisor David Mouche called the revelations deeply disappointing, writing, "It's not who we are at LHSC. We are doing the work to make sure this never happens again." The hospital says the findings have been turned over to London Police and all involved are no longer employed at LHSC. None of the allegations have been tested in court. Rita Ismail, CTV News.
And London Police Chief Ty Trong issued a statement late this afternoon confirming police are actively investigating allegations of fraud involving London Health Sciences Centre. Our financial crime unit is dedicated to conducting a thorough, fair and meticulous investigation. Understanding complex financial crime cases often require substantial time and resources to reach completion. St. Thomas police say they've charged a man after what they call a disturbance at St. Thomas Elgin General. Police say they were called to the emergency room early Tuesday morning. They say a man was throwing garbage cans and lit a fire inside a washroom. Police say a 28-year-old man from St. Thomas is charged with arson as well as mischief and uttering threats. Police closed down an intersection in South London earlier tonight because of a multi-vehicle crash. This was the scene just after 9 p.m. on Bradley Avenue near Wellington. 2 pickup trucks and a car appeared to be involved. A witness said it was a T-bone collision, which led to one of the vehicles catching fire. They also reported at least 1 person taken to hospital. At this time, though, no word from emergency responders on the severity of any injuries. London police say they've charged a driver accused of trying to exit a parking lot in an unusual fashion while impaired. Brian Bicknell has more on the video evidence and the witness tips leading to an arrest.
When leaving a parking lot, it's customary to drive through the exit lane with the lift gate. But video posted to social media shows the driver of a pickup truck on Saturday drive into a concrete barrier at a private lot on Carling Street, pushing the structure out into the street. Aaron Nava arrived shortly after this event.
And I turned the corner, and there's this giant concrete block in the middle of the road with this large vehicle just driven right over top of it, with the block stuck underneath the tires. And there are these huge drag marks across the floor.
But if there's any good news in any of this, it's that a number of people saw the whole thing go down. They witnessed this unorthodox parking lot situation here on Carling Street, and they contacted police, and police say that is exactly what they want. Officers came within moments. A 43-year-old Southwold woman was charged with a number of impaired driving-related offenses and failing to remain at the scene.
This situation could have been even more dangerous had she made her way into the roadway and continued on. Thanks to tips from members of the public, we were able to get there very quickly and arrest an impaired driver.
Everyone was looking, and this woman was in the middle of the street next to her vehicle, just getting asked questions and shouting back at people and walking back and forth.
While this incident happened in a private lot, the city's manager of parking says enforcement officers are kept on their toes in public parking situations as well.
We see creativity across the board, but our primary focus is, again, community safety through the enforcement of the regulations, but achieving voluntary compliance of those regulations prior to any enforcement.
The driver of the pickup truck has a court date set for August 11th. Brian Bicknell, CTV News.
Emergency crews responded to a two-story house fire downtown this morning. Lauren Stallone has more on the firefighting efforts and the rescue operation, getting one trapped occupant to safety.
Emergency crews responded to a two-story house fire at 458 King Street on Wednesday afternoon in London.
We were in the kitchen getting ready to make dinner. I got some friends over for dinner, and all of a sudden we heard some woman yelling fire.
One resident says he is thankful for the pedestrian that walked by and noticed the flames, but is heartbroken by the loss of his home.
Scared. I don't know what to expect when I go inside.
The London Fire Department says they were able to gain control of the fire upon arrival.
All occupants except for one on the second floor was able to make it out safely. We had to raise a ground ladder, and a fire crew had to assist that gentleman off the second floor because he was trapped by the fire.
London Fire says occupants were assessed by EMS and no one was taken to hospital.
I have to work with the tenants to make sure that anybody that's displaced has a place to go for the day.
They say while the cause of the fire is unknown, it is believed to have started outside. Lauren Stallone, CTV News.
Emergency responders were called to a reported carbon monoxide leak in south central London this afternoon. Officials say 2 adults and a small child were experiencing carbon monoxide poisoning symptoms. They were assessed by paramedics on scene and no one required hospital treatment. According to responders, the source of the gas was a hookah, and they say similar smoking devices should be used outdoors. A property in London's far south end has been recommended for the city's new police fire training centre, approved in the municipal budget. However, as Daryl Newcomb reports, the rural location is raising some concerns.
This farm field near the W12A landfill in South London is a recommended location to build London's emergency services campus, a training centre for London Police, the fire department, and more.
It's land that the city owns, which is significant cost savings. It's also near the W12A landfill, which means it's not in a populated area and has really quick access to the 401, 402 corridors.
A consultant's feasibility study and review of city-owned properties narrowed the search to 2 properties that make up the buffer around the landfill. The 129 acres at 3243 Manning Drive would be developed in stages to include training facilities for police and fire, London's next generation 911 call center, a new municipal emergency operations center, a shooting range for police, a new burn tower for firefighters, as well as a provincial hazmat response unit. But area resident Alan Tipping says rural communities in that area must be considered, especially if smoke will be emitted when firefighters are training.
I get to smell the landfill here on my property. There's a community right beside this property, basically, called Glanworth, that's going to be subject to this.
There are 2 significant planning principles council will have to consider about this site. First, located on the extreme south end of London, this is well outside the urban growth boundary. And second, these are prime agricultural lands. The staff report going to a council committee explains that prime agricultural lands can be developed if alternative locations have been evaluated and there are no reasonable alternative locations which avoid prime agricultural areas.
I think there's always concerns when you have to go outside the urban growth boundary and build on prime agricultural land. In this case, there's not much of a choice but to do so. When you think about the fact that we don't have a parcel of land this size that is appropriate within the urban growth boundary.
Funding for the emergency services campus came forward in the police budget and was approved by council. But the mayor believes that the provincial and federal governments could become co-funders if additional facilities related to regional public safety are included on the campus.
I've had ongoing and active discussions with provincial ministers and our federal MPs about this, and those are progressing really well.
A report about the proposed location will be in front of the Infrastructure and Corporate Services Committee on July 16th. Daryl Newcomb, CTV News.
A London City Councillor has arranged a public meeting for later this month addressing traffic concerns in Old North. Last month, a school crossing guard was seriously hurt by a driver at Colburn and St. James Street. Councillor Sam Trossow says that intersection should be converted to a four-way stop at minimum. Currently, it just features a pedestrian crosswalk. The public meeting is scheduled for July 23rd. It's also expected to address other Old North intersections the councillor says are at risk because of suburban growth.
Much of it is due to the development on the outskirts. People are looking for routes that they can cut through. They understandably don't want to take Oxford or Wonderland or Richmond, so they will figure out where they can cut through in the neighborhood. And I think that creates just more of a general peril.
Representatives with the Ontario Public Service Employees Union say nearly 10,000 college faculty and staff have either been let go or are set to lose their jobs amid province-wide funding cuts. With more on their concerns, here's Siobhan Morris.
We'll be back!
College faculty, staff, and students raising their voices to draw attention to a crisis they believe is flying under the radar.
We're seeing one of the largest mass layoffs in Ontario's history, with at least 10,000 job cuts by the end of this year.
I got redeployed.
People like Sarah MacArthur-Timofew.
My position was to focus on evidence-based data from the labor market to determine which programs actually needed more enrollment. Hilarious, right?
More than 650 programs have been cut or scaled back at Ontario colleges. For those still on the job, the uncertainty is unsettling.
I can't plan my future or find things to look forward to, because my present is a hamster wheel that feels like it's spinning off a cliff.
Students are feeling that stress, unsure if their own programs will be dropped.
Working conditions and studying conditions are being affected day in and day out.
The minister in charge puts the blame squarely with the federal government, which dramatically reduced the number of international students allowed into Canada.
We are saddened by the news of these layoffs, but there is the right sizing and rebalancing that is going on with less international students going into our post-secondary sector.
While the post-secondary sector has been pleading with the province for a cash infusion, Quinn defends the money going out the door.
In the last 14 months, funding for the post-secondary sector is the highest it's ever been in Ontario's history.
The funding far short of what a government-appointed panel recommended, and there are questions about how funding is being spent.
There are college presidents collecting salaries of over $400,000, even $600,000. That's more than the Prime Minister of Canada.
The province is consulting on how the sector's funded this summer and into early fall, but it's not clear when or if changes might come.
Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Parents in Stratford say since the federal government's $10 a day childcare program took effect, demand has soared, leaving hundreds of families without safe or affordable options. With more on those concerns, here's Alexandra Hollick.
Since he was born, 4-year-old Xander has been on a wait list for childcare.
He goes to school in September, and he's still on the wait list.
His parents, Jason Davis and Lariah Miller, say they signed him up for every eligible licensed program in Stratford and Perth County, exploring home care options when they didn't hear back.
The first one we put Xander in, he was starting to come home with unexplained bruises.
They pulled him out, and they say the facility was shut down.
We did find one that was very good.
but that came at a very high price.
That spot for 4 days a week, we're looking at about $800 to $1,000 a month.
Xander's family isn't alone. The city of Stratford says more than 850 kids are on the wait list for the only city-run childcare facility.
The number, including the county and the city of Stratford, is over 3,000.
It's really a systematic failure.
Jamie Lee Wagler is a licensed childcare provider and runs her own half-day nursery school.
It's not that childcares are picking and choosing people to come in. It's not that the city of Stratford is managing this wait list horribly. What it is there's not enough spaces for children.
Wagler says since the $10 a day childcare program came in, demand has skyrocketed.
They promise all these spaces, but the educators aren't treated as fairly as they should be. The spaces aren't opening up, and the funding is lacking so much that we can't just open spaces.
She says parents and educators need to speak up.
This isn't just a family crisis. The whole economic field relies on childcare to keep that going.
The city of Stratford says it feels parents' pain and plans to open nearly 100 new childcare spaces soon.
We are working towards that goal of 37% access, which is the province's provincial target.
But even if the city meets that goal, 63% of kids will still be without care.
We don't deserve to have to make these sacrifices, whether they're personal or financial. But unfortunately, it's just what we have to do as parents. So,
Alexandra Hollick, CTV News, Stratford.
Still to come, big league dreams on the cusp of realization. We'll introduce you to the local ball player expecting to hear his name called during the MLB draft. Strength in the basic metal or materials sector helped Canada's main stock index finish higher. The TSX is up 69 points in New York. The Dow added 218. The Nasdaq climbed 193. The Canadian dollar fell 1/10 of a cent today. On commodity markets, gold gained more than $4 an ounce, and oil is up a nickel a barrel. President Donald Trump has suggested he may implement a 50% tariff on imported copper, which could have serious economic consequences in Canada. More than half of our copper exports go to the States. With the latest on Trump's tariff threats, here's Mike LeCouture.
U.S. President Donald Trump released another batch of tariff letters to more trading partners. They include Brunei and Libya, and the tariff rate ranges from 20 to 30%. Now, Canada isn't included in this batch, but the government continues to watch after Trump said he'd impose 50% tariffs on copper imports.
When it comes to the latest declaration from the president in the United States, we have not yet seen an executive order.
Industry Minister Melanie Joly says the government is watching closely to see if Canada is affected by any more trade action from the United States. It is worth noting a 50% tariff on Canadian copper would be significant. Of the $9.3 billion worth of exports in 2023, more than half went to the U.S. The next two biggest destinations for Canadian copper were China and Japan. Trade experts say instead of forcing countries to make deals, U.S. tariffs are creating new economic alliances that actually exclude the U.S. And that could be bad for the American economy. And Canadian lawmakers say the goal is to get a deal that works for workers in this country.
My job right now is to make sure that in the context of this trade war, I'm supporting the front lines of this trade war, which are the workers and the companies affected by the unjustifiable and unjustified tariffs.
And the clock is ticking. Canada's self-imposed deadline to hammer out an economic and security deal with the U.S. is July 21st. Mike LeCouture, CTV News, Ottawa.
Good evening. Severe thunderstorms are prompting a tornado warning in through Grey County. The risk for severe weather drops overnight. Conditions across our region mainly cloudy but very warm. Muggy conditions hold as we head into your Thursday morning. A nice mix of sun and cloud as you head out the door at 19 degrees. Thanks, Deb, for this photo of Miss Ivy Linda. If you're heading out for a morning walk, nice conditions. Hot and muggy as we head into the afternoon tomorrow. I'll have all your local forecast details coming up.
Welcome back on the desk with Julie now after some severe weather made its way through our region today. What's in store now as we get into overnight?
Yeah, overnight things improving. The probability of thunderstorms will be dropping right off as we head into tomorrow morning. We're back into some sunshine. Today we were right where we should be for this time of year, although it was quite muggy this afternoon. We had a strong area of thunderstorms develop in through Grey County, and that prompted a tornado warning briefly. The storms were showing signs of rotation, so Environment Canada issuing that late through the afternoon. Severe thunderstorms continued through the evening, and as we head into the overnight, I mentioned things will be quieting down. 18 degrees in London, 16 in Mount Forest and KW, and we could see some patchy fog in and around Goderich, Grand Bend overnight. So this is our week, a little wave pushing through. Today we had the warm front come in, so that's why we picked up some heavy rainfall areas along the northern shoreline of Lake Erie today, in and around London. All of that air coming in, we had a lot of moisture associated with it, so hot and humid conditions and some torrential downpours associated with it. Along that warm front late in the afternoon, that's where we saw the active weather develop in Midwestern Ontario. These weak little fronts will be slipping through heading into tomorrow. Probability of thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon, about a 30% chance, so much less than it was today. As we head into your Friday, about a 30% chance of showers. We won't see the next measurable amount of rainfall coming in until the weekend. So Saturday night, a 60% chance of rain. So looks like we will get into some light rainfall this weekend, but it's not a wash. So your Thursday forecast, we'll start the day with a mix of sun and cloud. We'll go mainly sunny, and then we'll bring in a bit more cloud cover heading into the afternoon. It'll feel like the mid-30s. It's going to be a hot one across the area. Our East Park forecast for your Friday, a mix of sun and cloud in 29. A hot weekend setting up at 31 on Saturday, a mix of sun and cloud with a chance of nighttime rain. That probability of 40%, that's during the day, 60% chance at night. 28 degrees heading into Sunday. A few scattered showers in the forecast, and then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, mix of sun and cloud with daytime highs from 29 to 30. As we head into Thursday, 27 degrees. Yes, it'll be a beautiful afternoon with lots of sunshine, and then Friday, a mix of sun and cloud, looking like a couple nice beach days. So if you have been putting off going to the beach, looking good as we head to Port Stanley, Grand Bend area, great conditions. Saturday, a mix of sun and cloud, and then the chance for nighttime rain in here on Perth, Grey Bruce. Your probability is a bit lower, and then the chance for showers on Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, mix of sun and cloud, 28 to 29 degrees. Overnight lows right around where we should be for this time of year, but on average we will be above normal over the next 7. So looking good for your Thursday into Friday, a mix of sun and cloud. It'll be hot, humid, and just a slight risk for an afternoon pop-up thunderstorm. Carlyle, back to you.
Julie, thanks very much. Officials with a local conservation authority say thousands of homes and cottages are under increasing erosion risk along Great Lakes shores. And Scott Miller reports efforts to naturally slow things down are underway, but moving homes from the water's edge is also on the table.
The eroding shores of Lake Huron have put more than 1,700 homes, cottages, and other structures worth nearly $750 million at risk, according to the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority.
That's what's at risk here, so it's a big number.
Some structures and a road have already had to be moved away from the crumbling bluffs, and more structures will have to be moved in the very near future due to erosion, says the Conservation Authority, some for the second time.
Unfortunately, we can look at those numbers and just do the simple math and say, well, in the next 25 years, the road will probably be gone, let alone the house.
Planned relocation of homes and cottages perched atop Lake Huron's bluffs is an unpopular topic, but creating a ready-to-go user guide for municipalities to deal with these potentially dangerous situations is one of the main focuses of the Maitland Conservation Authority's new Southern Lake Huron Coastal Adaptation Strategy.
Nobody wants to move, especially if you got a front row seat, but you know, we know that the lake shore is going to erode in time. And it's just, what do we do about it?
The Conservation Authority is trying out a pilot project that would take the yearly dredgings of sediment and sand from the Goderich Harbor and Marina and move it south of Goderich to create an erosion buffer or artificial reef at the base of an eroding portion of shoreline near the 300-home coast development.
Without addressing it, it will only either continue or accentuate, and by addressing it, we can slow it down. We cannot mitigate it to stop. We can slow it down.
I don't think we have enough money to build a wall to keep that lake from eroding that shoreline. So it's going to happen. How do we do that? How do we do that fairly and equitably. But the reality is that we're not going to stop the lake.
In Huron County, Scott Miller, CTV News.
CTV News London has a newsletter helping you start your day with the latest local headlines. By signing up, you'll get local news content from CTV London direct to your inbox, including top stories, the forecast, and videos. You can sign up at ctvnewslondon.ca. Finally tonight, a local baseball prospect is expected to hear his name called during the upcoming Major League Baseball draft. With more on his journey from small-town Midwestern Ontario to potentially the big leagues, here's Brent Lale.
Gary! Tyson Moran is making his way up the draft boards of major league teams.
He just hasn't stopped hitting.
As the MLB draft approaches this week, the second baseman from Wingham is ranked by some as a mid-round pick.
I haven't really been a highly touted prospect over the years until recently, so yeah, just trying to soak it all up and trying not to take it for granted.
Moran has elevated his game over the past year and is described by his coaches as determined.
It's a 2-hour drive, and he's the first kid here 4 days a week. So he wants to work. He appreciates the opportunity he's been given, and guys like that tend to succeed in this game.
Yeah, go!
It started in March on a trip to Arizona playing professional competition that he just absolutely demolished and hasn't really stopped since then. So easy to root for kid. The makeup is great. He's going to.
During that trip, he hit 2 home runs against the Cleveland Guardians. Every time he plays, scouts are keeping a close eye.
It is really cool to kind of interact with some of the scouts, especially with me going down to Arizona. That kind of environment was really cool. I'm playing against a bunch of pro guys. Just realizing that could be me in the next couple of years. I try not to think about that too much. He really had a kind of a coming out, so to speak, in last fall, and was the Futures Game MVP there for the Toronto Blue Jays showcase, which is a big deal from across the country. He's an exciting player. There's going to be people here in professional organizations watching him play like they have been all spring.
He's committed to North Dakota State University, but has dreams of playing professionally. With the new 20-round draft, only half as many prospects are getting picked compared to previous years, but Moran should be one of them.
That's kind of my goal right now, obviously, but it would be something I would never forget.
Brent Lale, CTV News.
And that's it for us. Thanks for watching. For all of us at CTV News London, I'm Carlyle Fiset. Have a good night.